Okay, so it is Sunday the 23rd of October 2016. I'm in front of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation in Lachine, and I am protesting against a variety of Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, but the emphasis is on the misuse of Canada's blasphemy law by the Unitarian Universalist Association in Bill Cosby style clergy sex abuse cover-up legal bullying. It is a fact that atheist Unitarian Universalists are accusing me of blasphemy, which I find very amusing. This picket sign is actually a classic. This picket sign has existed since at least 1999. And it used to have a question mark. It used to have a question mark somewhat softening the blow of what was a rhetorical question, but in its most recent iteration I removed the question mark because there really is no question that Unitarian Universalism is not safe to people who complain about clergy misconduct of any kind, sexual or otherwise. It's unsafe in various other ways, but specifically when it comes to clergy misconduct and complaining about it, what happens is the minister's protected to the max and the complainants are bullied and shunned and ostracized and so on. Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice sucks U asterisk U, and yes, that can be read as ass. That is actually, you know, the misuse of blasphemy law to cover up pedophilia and rape is just one element of Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice, but it's a pretty egregious one. But yes, there's other forms of perversion of justice practiced by Unitarian Universalists that really does kind of suck ass, as it were. So got somebody looking out through the window there, and they're looking at my picket signs that say Unitarian Universalists misuse blasphemy law to cover up and deny pedophilia and rape, which is an entirely truthful statement about the fact that the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston did in fact hire the Canadian attorney for the UUA, Stikeman Elliott, Barristers and Solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of violating Canada's blasphemy law for allegedly, and I do emphasize the word allegedly here because what he accused me of is in fact totally false. He accused me of making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And he claimed that these allegedly unfounded and vicious allegations were so defamatory that they actually constituted the criminal act of blasphemous libel against the Unitarian Universalist religious community. When I first read the first cease and desist demand letter that Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe had me served with in June of 2012, besides bursting out laughing, I, had never seen the term blasphemous libel before. I'd heard the word blasphemous, I heard the word libel, I knew what they meant, but I'd never seen them combined in this phrase, blasphemous libel. So I engaged in a free and responsible search for the meaning of the term blasphemous libel, and quickly discovered that Canada does in fact still have a blasphemy law in the Canadian Criminal Code, and the law itself is incredibly vague. It just says whosoever commits a blasphemous libel can end up spending 2 years in jail. That's about all it says. I mean, those aren't the exact words. I don't have the exact words memorized, legalese, but that's essentially what it says, Whosoever commits blasphemous libel is guilty of blah, blah, blah offense or whatever, and the penalty is up to 2 years in jail. So the Unitarian Universalist Association was threatening to have me charged with blasphemous libel for speaking about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. And I wrote back to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe and told him that I was unaware of any blog posts that matched his description of unfounded and vicious allegations, yada yada yada. I said I was having considerable difficulty finding the Emerson Avenger blog post that matched his description. Could he please provide titles of those blog posts that he was saying amounted to blasphemous libel? Could he provide the URLs, that is the internet web address of the blog post in question? Could he give me a date or something to clearly identify which blog post he was talking about, so that I could go and remind myself what they said and decide, whether or not I was going to take them down as he was demanding. He was demanding that I delete the blog posts and that I memory hold them so that they're no longer readable by anyone. So essentially people can no longer engage in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of what is said in them. Instead of identifying which blog posts he was talking about, he quite arrogantly responded, that my claims not to be able to find the offending material are not credible. In other words, he was essentially saying that I was lying and claiming not to be able to find the blog post he was talking about. Good day, sir.
Hey, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Basking in the glory of being accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. It doesn't get much better than that.
Really?
Yeah, really. They've been accused.
You're the fellow who I see in front of the other church as well.
If you're talking about the Montreal Unitarian Church, yeah.
Hey, yes?
That's me, yeah.
Oh.
I've been accused of the criminal act of blasphemous libel by the lawyer for the Unitarian Universalist Association for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So he's accusing me of a crime that carries a 2-year jail term for blogging about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, claiming that my blog posts are false and vicious. Well, there's a bit of a problem because, yes, I've blogged about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, but I blogged about cases where they were charged, tried, and convicted and were sentenced to jail terms and went to jail, and these were reported in credible news sources, so they're absolutely not unfounded. So I'm being falsely accused of a criminal act by Unitarian Universalists, and specifically blasphemy. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Unitarian Universalist religious community has a centuries-old proud tradition of opposing blasphemy laws. So it is outrageously hypocritical for Unitarian Universalists to then turn around and falsely accuse me of blasphemy for telling the truth about pedophiles and rapists in their church. It's outrageous, and that's why I'm protesting.
So are you under some sort of legal punishment?
Not at all, no, because I'm innocent until proven guilty. They haven't even taken it to court. They can't take it to court because it's completely false. If they actually tried to have me charged on the basis, I mean, their exact words were, this is in the legal letter, they said, your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory. And they went on to say that they're so defamatory that they constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel. Well, as I said, they're not unfounded at all. So if they went to the police and they said, we want you to arrest Rob and Edgar for blasphemous libel, for making unfounded vicious allegations, blah, 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 that would be a false report to the police. It would be public mischief. And I could, in fact, have those Unitarians charged with public mischief for making a false report to the police. So they can't have me charged.
The whole thing just sits here.
Well, the whole point is yes, they cannot have me charged. But I'm saying, no, you're going to withdraw that accusation, because they made the accusation. You're going to apologize for it, and you're going to tell the truth about just how many pedophiles and rapists you have in your church. And they haven't done that. And on top of that, I think Canadian Unitarians should protest this act, because this is a perversion of justice committed by the Unitarian Universalist Association that betrays every single pertinent principle of Unitarian Universalism. It betrays the second principle, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. It betrays a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It betrays this sixth principle, which calls for world community, blah, 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 peace and all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, it betrays the tradition of opposing blasphemy laws. This is completely outrageously hypocritical that the Unitarians would accuse anyone of blasphemy for any reason whatsoever. It's truly outrageous.
And the camera?
I've recorded my protest. I've had picket signs stolen. I've had assaults on me. I've had false reports to the police. You spoke about the other church, so you know that I protest in front of the other church. They've repeatedly called the SPVM to try and shut down my protest, and they've often made false allegations about me in terms of that. And so I record what's happening to protect myself from false accusations, but I also document everything that's happening. So that's that. So are you a Canadian Unitarian?
Yeah.
Which church do you belong to?
Well, I belong to a church in Ottawa, actually. I just moved here, so it's all new to me.
Oh, really? So are you saying you're an American that came? No.
Ontario.
Oh, you just moved here?
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Ottawa.
Okay, so you were in Ottawa and now you're in Montreal. Do you go to this church or?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. So you won't be seeing much of my protest. Although actually, I've considered protesting. Yeah, I know. I heard that. But what I'm saying is, I've actually considered protesting here as well, and I am today because it's the Eastern Regional Gathering and so on.
Right.
No, I think every Canadian Unitarian, if they truly believe in the claimed principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism, should be demanding an explanation from the Unitarian Universalist Association. They should be demanding, just as I am, that they withdraw the accusation. They should be demanding that they apologize. And they should be demanding that they stop hiding pedophilia and rape and tell the truth, because they're still hiding it. They're still doing their best to pretend it doesn't happen. In fact, I had a discussion with UUA moderator Jim Key. In 2013, my discussions and emails with him were towards the end of trying to get the UUA to withdraw the accusations and so on. And so I told him about cases where Unitarian Universalists had been charged, tried and convicted of pedophilia. And what does he do? He does nothing in terms of resolving the situation. And in June of 2014, he stands up and he delivers his first moderator's report to UUAGA. And in the middle of his moderator's report, he delivers what's supposed to be an apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. And in that apology, he says, there were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations. So he's claiming that he investigated Unitarian Universalist clergy sexual misconduct and found no evidence of sexual abuse of children. When in fact, a certain number of Unitarian Universalist ministers have been sent to jail for sexual abuse of children. This is a bald-faced lie in an apology which seeks to hide sexual abuse of children. So I think there's some very, very serious problems with this church, and I think any Unitarian, Canadian or otherwise, should be concerned about that.
Okay. Well, here, you mean?
No. I'm talking about the Unitarian Universalist Association.
Okay.
But they essentially represent Unitarian Universalism in North America. Although the Canadian Unitarian council is ostensibly separate from the UUA.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of the ministers in Unitarian Universalist churches in Canada are Americans, and they're subject to the Unitarian Universalist Association. But even if that wasn't the case, just the fact that they're falsely accusing a Canadian of blasphemous libel to hide pedophilia and rape, that's clearly an injustice, and it's clearly one that does not reflect well on the Unitarian Universalist Church in general. I think Canadian Unitarians should be concerned.
I gotta go right now.
Yeah, well, good talking to you.
I'll talk to you again.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. So we just had a chat with a fellow for a good while. We got it all recorded. So this is an older fellow, came out of church, engaged in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of my protest, and he had seen my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, so he was aware of that. So we had a nice chat. Glad we got it all recorded. And so he says that he was previously a Unitarian Universalist in Ottawa, and this guy's, that's funny, he doesn't want to be on camera, I guess. Anyhow, he listened to what I had to say, and I laid it out for him, and he's actually said he'll talk to me again, which is kind of promising. So he did what Unitarian Universalists are supposed to do, up to a point. He engaged in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It's just a question now of whether he'll take it to the next level and try to ensure that genuine justice, equity, and compassion is practiced by himself and by other Canadian Unitarians. So my battery's just about dead, so I'm going to change the battery, and we're coming towards the end of a 17-minute segment anyway, so this is it.